Thank you to Deborah. That was outstanding, absolutely on point, and I'm not even going to pretend like I can compete with that. Mental note for self, next year, I'm going before her. That's just make us all feel better, I think. In any event, I'm going to speak to you for a few minutes now, and one of the things that I get to do during my presentation is introduce our social media theme, so I'm going to be doing that in just a few minutes. I'm a big fan of social media. I'm going to say this up front before I get started. Big fan of social media. I happen to use Twitter. If you use Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is that you use, feel free to tweet. I think we need to say this now at the start of presentations anymore. So if you're one of those who gets involved in the back channel conversation that occurs with some presentations, if that's your bailiwick, then by all means feel free to do that. If I see you on your phone, I won't be offended at all, and you can feel free to tag me at QShepherd if you're so inclined. And when I introduce the theme, if you could tag that as well, I would appreciate that. So I'm here to talk a little bit about connections and communications as well. And in some ways, I think our presentations, although we didn't practice or rehearse together, in some ways I think there's going to be a lot of overlap for you. I hope that there's some overlap for you. I'm going to start with a story as well. I like this story. I read this a long time ago. It's a story about a principal. And he'd been a principal in the building for a number of years, and he happened upon this idea. He had this thought, he had this theory that connections between teachers and students matter maybe more than anything else that happens in a school. And so he asked his secretary, and this is where we love our secretaries. My God, the stuff we put them through is just amazing. He asked his secretary to write down the name. Can you imagine doing this? He asked her to write down the name of every student in the school on a 3x5 card.
How does that conversation
go? Like, okay, write down the name of every student on a 3x5 card. So they did. And then he and the secretary went into the gym. I don't know if you guys are laughing like you wouldn't actually do that to me, would you? So they went into the gym, and then they took tape, and they taped this card for every student on the wall throughout the year. And then they brought the students in, they brought the teachers into the gymnasium after that. And they said to the teachers, this is just really, really simple. All we want you to do is to claim your students. Now here's how you get to claim your students. Here's how you know who your students are. Your students are the ones that you know certain intimate details about these kids. You know things about their family life that nobody else knows. You know things about their siblings. You know things about their personal life. These are your kids. You own them, right? And you can picture that. You can picture how that goes. And so the teachers scatter and they start claiming their kids. And as you can imagine, some of the teachers are like fighting over some of the kids. You know, like the super popular ones and the ones who we all know and we love and so on and so forth. And so this goes on for a few minutes, and things start to die down, and the teachers come back to the center of the gymnasium, and they notice that there's still some 3x5 cards on the wall. And so the teachers are naturally curious and inquisitive, and they want to go see who are these kids? Who are the kids that we didn't claim? That seems odd. And I think you probably know at this point where I'm going with it. These were the students who struggled the most in school. These were the students who oftentimes the teachers had the most difficulty with. The kids who were suspended, disciplined, detention. And yet most of the people in the room didn't really know these kids. They couldn't claim. And so the story goes that, they had this epiphany that they were going to try to connect with their kids more deeply than they had ever connected before in that school year. Revolutionize how they were doing business and so on and so forth. And I love that story, but as we're taught to do, we're supposed to think critically with stories like that and say, well, does it speak the truth to me? Is it the whole truth? Is there something missing? And I think it tells a big part of the story, but I think any of us who've been in the classroom for any number of years at all, we know that it tells just part of the story. I think the other part of the story, equally important, is the connections that kids have with each other. And we see that all the time. Whether or not a student is positive influence, or whether or not they're with a peer group that's maybe not so positive and not setting them in the right direction. And we've seen how that can shake out as well. And so I think it tells part of the story. I think the other part of the story is the connections that kids have with each other and how important that is. And that's going to be part of what I talk about today too. And so then my question becomes, well, Well, what would happen? What would happen if you took that deep dive into connections and really tried to change what could you accomplish with that? At this point, I think it's important that I just stop, because we're talking about our connections with kids. Talking about how important our connections are. Uh-oh. Plan B. Talking about how important our connections are with kids. If you guys could get this worked out, because I'm a mover, you gotta have me mobile, because I'm gonna feel like a caged animal here before too long. How important our connections are with kids. And for some of us in the room, we're carrying a dark cloud above us this morning. As you may have heard, we lost a student. We just found out yesterday. One of our students committed suicide on Tuesday evening. And for any of us in the room that had a connection with that student, I just want to stop for a minute and say our hearts are with you right now. Sometimes it's our connections with our kids that are so deep that they bring us our greatest joys, and they bring us our greatest sorrows as well. And as I continue to talk about connections today, I just want you to know that we're with you. Here we are. This is plan C. Keep it rolling. Turn it on. There we go. All right. Phew. So here I am talking about connections and the importance of connections and why this matters. And I want you to notice I have a chair up on the stage. That's my design. I put that there. And I have, I didn't put that chair there. Somebody put the chair there. Chair is there. I asked for a chair, it's there. So these connections, they matter. They really matter. And I was thinking about what did I want to say today about connections and what could I talk about. And I like the idea of doing the impossible. I think that should be part of it. And so I have a student in my mind sitting right there. And that's the student taking me back as a principal that I wasn't able to connect with. And I know for a fact I didn't connect with that student. And I tried and I tried and I tried, and I've asked myself a million times in years that have passed, did I do everything I could? Should I have tried something different? So on and so forth. I want you to take a moment, and I want you to think of someone who you were not able to connect with. And I know it's happened for all of us. We've had students we haven't been able to connect with. I want you to picture that student. I want you to think about that student. And I want you to put that student right there in that chair. And I want you to think about a different type of person. We have some of these people in the room, actually. I want you to think about somebody who doesn't have a connection. That just doesn't have a lot of connections right now in their life. And we're not sure what kind of messages that they're hearing. Some of those people in the room are if you look around, you'll see them. I think they're like the Kmart Blue Light Special. There are new teachers who are new to the district, right? They have that semi-terrified look in their eye at all times. They're about to come into the schools now for the first time. Imagine what it feels like. Imagine, just put yourself in their shoes. We've all been there. Imagine what happens on the first day of school when students are back and to go to lunch in the teacher's lounge, right? They know nobody. They don't know the protocol. They don't know where to sit. They may not have friends. They don't have connections, and it's a rather terrifying thing, right? We have a number of students who are going to be new to the district. First time in the district, they have no connections at all. No peer connections, no adult connections, no teacher connections. They have nothing. Can you imagine what that feels like? If you've been in that situation, can you go back to that moment and imagine what that feels like? Terrifying. Terrifying. We have other students, lots of students throughout the district, who are transitioning between buildings, right? They may have peer connections, they may have a network, but they have no adult connections. None whatsoever. And we have to keep that in mind. No connections at all. What is it like to be in that position where you have no connections? What could you do? What would you do? Who would you listen to? Could you move forward? Could you accomplish your goals? Could you be successful at anything you took on? See, I think these connections allow us to do the impossible. I think they allow us to do it. I think this opens the door a little bit. And that's why I'm happy to introduce our social media team, Kevin. You haven't seen anything yet. Wait. When we're done today, like Kevin's going to steal the show from all of us, so just wait. Hashtag LM Connections. That's our theme for the year. LM Connections. We want to hear about your connections between each other, as Deborah talked about. Connections between each other, the powerful connections you have with each other. I want to hear about and see and hear stories about your connections with kids. We all want to see that. We all want to hear that. What a great source of positive energy for all of us to take. And every bit as important, equally important, I want to hear about your connections that you see between kids. Kids who are connected with groups in a positive way and doing successful things and achieving the impossible as a result of that. I want that to be the theme for the year that just kind of carries us on a high cloud and prove to us that we can set out to do anything we want with our kids. So that's our theme for the year. Hashtag LN Connections. And so we've got this picture of this student sitting up on this chair, right? And we know that we can achieve the impossible. And you've heard me talk about, gosh, we're going to achieve the impossible. Sure, Quintin, that sounds great. Yeah. And then we're going to go back to it and we're going to do it. But I want to make this real for you. I don't want to just tell you we can do it. I want to show you that I think we can do this. And so, like, here's the moment where I gave Tim, President Eisenberg, I should stay on the far side of the room so that he can't reach me. I told him I was going to call him, and I didn't tell him what we're going to do. But I told him I was going to call on him. So, Tim, if you could stand up. And if you could, sort of down by the projector down there, down front, join me. And Mark Hutchinson is here somewhere. There he is. And when I told him, I got an entirely different look from him. When I told Tim, he's like, oh, yeah, okay, we'll see how that goes. When I told Mark I was going to use him and didn't tell him what we're going to be doing, I got that look that only a high school administrator can give someone, which is like, just so you know, if this thing goes south, there's going to be consequences. Really, we're all friends here, fella. Like, just ease up. So, we've not done anything to prepare for this, so it could totally be a success. Let's think. Positive. So, what's going to happen is, trying to think here. I'm trying to think who I'd like to have be in charge on this. So Mark, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask Lisa Breitfelder to take you out into the foyer area, and when you come back in, the instructions for you are simple. Just do what we tell you to do. Oh, and one other thing. I have this blindfold that I'd like you to wear when you come back in. Please and thank you. All right, thank you. He gave me that look just now. When he turned towards me and I handed him that blindfold, I got that look again. And this one, like, communicated, I may just be slashing your tires later. So now, like, the threat is real. Like, this is a real thing here. All right, so he's out there and they're off, so they can't hear us now. Now I'm going to tell you all the rules of this particular game. I asked Jerry to bring the chair forward because I really don't want to get Mark hurt if I can do that. So for everybody in the room, your job is simple, and there are only a few rules to this game. You can't move. You can't touch him. You can't do anything. You can't, physical anything with him, right? You can use your voice. That's it. You can use your voice. You can be as loud as you want. You can say whatever you want. Your goal, collectively, is to keep him from sitting in this chair. Don't let him sit in this chair when we bring him back in this room. Okay? You all with me? As loud as you want. Your goal, establish whatever mental connection you can with him. You should start now. Same rules apply. Can't move. Can't touch him. Physically can't be near him. And use your voice as loud as you want. You can say whatever you want. And your goal is to get him to sit down. Are you connected? Connections matter, right? We're going to see how connected he really is. All right. So you all know the rules. You ready? And just so that we're all on the same page, when I put my hand in the air, that's when you're allowed to say whatever it is you want to say. When I put my hand down, please let's bring some decorum back to the room if we could. Give me just a second to go get Mark, and we're ready. Can we get Mark? Come on in. You don't have to put on the blindfold until you get in the room. Oh, perfect. All right, that works. Come. He's got his glasses over his blindfold and he's ready. I guess. I don't know if it's going to help or not. All right, he's almost here. I can hear him coming. So, if ready. Are we ready, President Isaac? Are we ready? Okay, so remember, Mark, right there. All right, remember, your job is, there it is. For those of you that are tweeting, please get a picture of this. Remember, Mark, your job is to listen to the instructions of the people in the room and just follow those instructions. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Mark, this is
Stop. Save it. All right, take off the blindfold for a second. Are you okay? He's okay. All right. Bear with me. We're going to have you do this again. Oh, there's the look. There it is. We're going to do this again. But before we go out in the hallway, imagine that. Empathize with that for a minute. Remember, we're thinking about kids. We're thinking about new teachers. We're thinking about people who don't have connection. Imagine, that was a 5-second, approximately. And can you imagine how uncomfortable, how disquieting that is? Just for 5 seconds, to not have an intimate connection and to not know what to do. Could you imagine just for a minute not having personal connections in your life ever? How profoundly emptying that would be. And I'm convinced the longer I'm in education, there are kids who come into our system who have very, very few connections with other kids or with adults or with people in their lives. And maybe they go home at night and they don't know that their happiness is being looked after by a caring adult. And I don't want to lead a school district kid that feels that way, ever. We owe it to her. We owe it to her to establish a connection, because we can achieve the impossible when we do. I'm going to ask you to go out in the hallway. Bear with me. Go out in the hallway. The rules are not going to change, okay? Just do your best. It'll be fine. All right, for everybody in the room, the rules are exactly the same. Nothing changes. You can't move, you can't touch him. Your goal is to keep him from sitting in that chair. That's your only goal. And the rules change for you ever so slightly. You still can't touch him. Your goal is to sit down in that chair. But you can stand wherever you want to. That's why he's board president, you see. It didn't take him long. All right. Let's see if we can make the nearly impossible happen. Let's bring Mark back in. He's gone, by the way. He took off. He's like, forget it. Here's your blindfold. All right. So when I raise my hand, we're going to start the instructions, and we're going to see if we can achieve the nearly impossible. Remember your goal. Do your best. He's a very cautious walker. All right, you remember the rules? Listen. I'm waiting until I say, there we go. Just wait. We're going to give you instructions. Go! take off the glasses. How about that? How about that? There it is, in a nutshell. Hey, that nice blindfold, that satin blindfold, that's mine. I don't know what you're all laughing at. Serious business here. It's not what you think. It's for my magic kit, for crying out loud. Good Lord. You're educators. You're better than this. Seriously. You guys can have a seat. Thank you. Thank you, guys. That's it. That's it in a nutshell right there. That's your evidence. See, the nearly impossible? No, not so much. Just maybe nearly improbable. Improbable. Not impossible. How many kids come into our system that it's impossible? They can't. It's improbable. It's just improbable. We can do it. We can do it, and these connections matter. You saw it right there. That was the one voice that he could listen to, and it gave him direction. And what if that was a positive influence in a student's life who has otherwise negative influences? What could we accomplish if the nearly impossible was just merely improbable? It matters for all of our kids. I love the saying. This is the saying. You know, the kids who come to school prepared, ready, eager, they make our jobs easy. Kids who don't, they make our jobs worthwhile. So I challenge you. This is the challenge for the year. I want you to deeply connect with each other to the best of your ability, with people you haven't connected with before. And if there are people on staff who are new, let's make sure that they're connected soon. And if there are people on staff who've been connected in the past and maybe they're not so much anymore, let's reach out and rebuild those bridges. And tell us about it. Put it on our social media. If you have a very special story you'd love to tell, make sure you reach out to Matthew May, our communications coordinator. We'd love to feature it on the website. We'd love to bring it before the Board of Education publicly to share these connections. I challenge you to connect deeply with every one of the students in your charge. Every one of them. Help them to realize that they can achieve the impossible. They can do it. I believe in you, and I believe you will do this. And lastly, every bit as important, help us to celebrate and recognize students who are connected to each other. Let's make a commitment in the first few weeks of school that we're going to make sure that all of our kids know about the wonderful opportunities that exist in clubs, in co-curricular, in extracurriculars, in anything that happens in and around the school so that they can get involved with a positive peer network that can keep them moving forward on the right track towards their goals. Let's make that commitment. Let's make that commitment together, that we can do that. We can achieve the impossible if you do that. If everybody in this room committed to that, truly and deeply, there's nothing we can't do in this district. We could achieve the impossible. I truly believe that. I also want you to think about the connections that you're providing to other people. As Deborah said, the conversations that you have with other people, the whispering in the ear, if you will. Are you a voice of positivity for your peers? Commit to that as well. Don't be a voice of negativity. It's not helpful. There's no call for that. And lastly, think about the voices that are speaking in your ear. Let them be positive too. Let them be positive. And if they're not, confront them. Make that commitment. Because I think, as Deborah said, I agree 100%, that if you put the relationship first in every one of your conversations, as opposed to outcome, if you put the relationship first over outcome, it changes the nature of how we talk to people. And so I'll ask you to put your relationships first. You've heard enough from me. I'd like you to hear from you, and so I'll turn it over.